We are starting off with the song that brought indie rock band Arcade Fire out of a 2-year hiatus called I Give You Power. Released to coincide with President Trump's inauguration in 2017, it's a collaboration with gospel legend Mavis Staples, whom you'll see later in this mixtape again. With lyrics like I give you power, I can take it away, the power of the voters on elected officials are front and center, and it provides the backdrop for the first buzzword I wanted to define: voter suppression. Generally, voter suppression refers to various alleged legal and illegal efforts to prevent eligible voters from exercising their rights. The roots of voter suppression in this country exist as far back as its inception, when voting was prohibited for everybody except free white males. Even after the ratification of the 15th Amendment, which stated that the right to vote could not be prohibited on account of race, and which saw its 150th anniversary this year, the South was able to continue its suppression of black voters by passing Jim Crow laws like poll taxes, which disproportionately prohibited poor people like, coincidentally, recently freed slaves, literacy tests, for which most white voters were exempt through dubious reasons, and the grandfather clause, which said you could only vote if your grandfather could vote, which obviously excluded a huge portion of the population whose grandfathers were literally slaves. These attempts to silence African American voices were very successful until the brave efforts of civil rights activists like John Lewis and Andrew Young in the 50s and 60s, leading to the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Although the most egregious Jim Crow laws by this point were outlawed, Southern states were still finding ways to disenfranchise voters through requiring voter IDs, which minority groups are most likely to not have, and closing polls in predominantly minority neighborhoods. The 1965 law made it so that federal government would have to approve any such measures to ensure it was not motivated by discrimination, but this portion of the law was struck down by a majority Republican-appointed Supreme Court in 2013. Literally within days, southern states like Texas rushed to approve laws that would strip voting rights from predominantly people of color. I think one startling statistic is that the 50 Texas counties with the greatest growth in Black and Hispanic residents saw over 500 poll closures, as opposed to only 34 closures in the counties that gained the least Black and Hispanic residents. Hard to call it a coincidence. Congressman John Lewis presided over a House vote to restore the Voting Rights Act's oversight over state laws that disenfranchise voters, and it passed only to stall in the Republican-led Senate, as in, it hasn't even gotten a vote. John Lewis has since passed away before he was able to see the restoration of the Voting Act he advocated for as a young civil rights activist in the 60s. There's so much more I want to say here, but I can tell this week's playlist is going to suffer from some really lengthy videos, so I'll just end the discussion here. At the very least, I hope this has just opened the topic up for some future reading.